Hey, welcome to this week's episode of Voices in Hyperspace. I'm Damian, aka Legendary Black Lion.
I'm Mel Asylum, also known as Mel's Rebellion.
Yo, it's Nita.
Hey y'all, it's Sunday.
All right, so this episode we are looking at season 1, episode 7 of Babylon 5, entitled "The War Prayer." The previous episode was interesting because it was talking about space Nazis. The theme was kind of like the creeping specter of authoritarianism and fascism. I mean, you can't get away from it with the way that the Psychor operatives were dressed. They were basically space Nazis. And that will be their role for the rest of the series. But in this one, we are dealing with issues of xenophobia and ethno-chauvinism. And there was something, so full disclosure to anyone listening to this and able to listen to it, I thank you, first off. But second, this is our take 2 of this episode because in the middle of recording this just yesterday, we lost all power and internet, and it was about an hour or so after we originally started, or when we got cut off, that it all came back, and we just had to come back the next day. But there was something that came to mind while I was, while I had that time to think about it. There is another element of dealing with traditions versus breaking away from tradition. And that is Londo's story. So this episode opens up with two Centauri, I guess teenagers, and it made me think of Romeo and Juliet. They are escaping to Babylon 5, and they basically get arrested because they have some stolen credits. And you find out they don't want to get married to the people they were arranged to be married to. They were trying to escape so they can be with each other. So that was the other thread that is in here. And before we get too far into it, I wanted to know, what were y'all's impressions of this episode?
Really, was just struck by how there's not. I'm sorry. Can we? I'm not ready.
Okay, no worries.
Can we pause and help refresh? Because when I asked the question, do you remember where we were? I was seeking some prep to help me put my mind back together on what the episode was about before we started recording, and I just don't feel prepared.
All right, we'll pause here.
Okay, so my impression of the show was an expression of the different perspectives that humans can have when confronted with their passions for other people, whether it's other species or personal.
What some of the perspectives that were expressed in this episode for you?
The perspective of accepting other species or trying to kill them. Then there's the personal ones of rejecting someone because of who they are or loving them because of who they are. And then there's Mondo, who just rejected the idea of love for his culture. Not for his culture, but because of his culture, he rejected the idea of personal love, that it didn't exist, but for other people it did. And you had the friendship between, what is her name? The poet and the
Mayan and
ambassador.
Delenn.
Yeah. Then you had the two lovers, and then you had the other two human lovers are second in command, and
Ivanova and Malcolm.
yeah. So a platonic one, a romantic one, and one that wasn't either. It's like I know you personally and I have feelings, but like no.
Right. Yeah. What about you, Nita?
I was thoroughly distracted by the bigender symbol that was put on the Minbari poet and trying to figure out its meaning, if there was any. Um, so when that happened in the beginning, and she was called a freak. So I thought, oh, this is going to be a like gender identity kind of episode, and it wasn't. So then I was like, oh, well, maybe that symbol was adopted later to mean like the two genders coming together. But no, by the time that episode aired, the bigender symbol was already in use. So then I was like, well, since it was the humans that did it, then maybe it's something like human because other aliens don't do male or female. I'm like, no, 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 they do. They've talked about male and female types of different species. So it was just really distracting for me. I didn't get any closure on what that meant. Um, but for aside from that, I thought it was a very uh, interesting episode. I've had some conversations with other humans about things like Sunday and I, we've talked about whether everybody should know all the information or if just the few should know and which few should know, and that conversation came to my mind when the fish lady was like,
Oh yeah. Yep.
yo, didn't these children just get harmed? He was like, they be alright.
Yeah.
And I was like,
So
why is he talking to her like that?
yeah, when Sinclair he had to pretend to be sympathetic to the xenophobic home
Mhm.
front home guard, and yeah, he gave her the cold shoulder like they'll be alright.
Be
Don't
alright.
worry, don't be afraid. But
And then
it's
I remembered
yeah,
it was just an act, but the lady, she didn't know it was an act, and then it made me think like, should other people be briefed on the kinds of things? Because a reaction like that to the wrong person could spark like trouble. Like, what the
yeah.
fuck you mean, baby? And she was very passive though. So.
I mean, and then earlier they also were, well, Jakar was trying to incite a riot, so it was very volatile, and Sheridan had to thread a tight needle because I mean, people it wanted the situation was about to erupt anyway. People were getting beat up and stabbed. They didn't show us anybody dying, but they showed us people getting like really really banged up.
That scene reminds me of that conversation that we had, Nita, and how I was on the side of give everybody all the information, but in that situation where you're trying to catch, a criminal, if you're going undercover, that's a very, good time where, only a few people need to know in order to protect the undercover individual and try to capture the terrorist or whatever we're labeling that person as. As far as the episode as a whole goes, um, I was kind of let down by the lack of like explanation of the Minbari relationship between those two women. I was really feeling like there was some kind of connection between them, and as the episode progressed, I don't think there was a lot of mm, dots connected as like why they felt that way. Um, but I really did appreciate, how they, well, not even just they, but a lot of sci-fi content really takes current social issues and draws some very easy to see parallels on television. And I am confused as to how people who are watching this content don't see their bigotry being displayed for them in living color.
As oh, go ahead, Mel.
Oh, um, one comment about the choice in not telling people. I think because the fish lady was a friend of Delenn, and because Garibaldi is as nosy as he is, um, they kind of knew how she would react. It was unfair to her to be that terrified. I think it would have been more fair if you had got like why are their names escaping me? The other reptilian guy, the main character. The one
Jakar.
that was, yeah, Jakar. If they had got Jakar in on it, he would have been more maybe he would have been more compliant, and he would have still had that attitude that would have been appropriate for going into there. But instead they scared this poor little girl to death. And and what Sunday was saying about people watching this content and not getting it. I was live a few weeks ago on TikTok, and some guy was like trying to explain to me how he didn't like Rage Against Machine, and like I used to like it, but I found out that they were this, and that, and all things that are true about Rage Against Machine, all things that I love about Rage Against Machine, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
so how did you listen to them for years and not know
Right.
that's what they were saying and doing? I mean, they made it very public where their stances were.
Yeah.
So, it is amazing how people can just watch things for something and only see what they want to see. And actually, I had that experience with Skippity toilets. When I first watched it,
What?
I
Hold
thought it
on.
was
What are we
Give me
talking about?
that sounds like
it's
a game.
it's blown up on YouTube where it's a battle between heads in toilets versus like the media, like there's
Wait,
speakers and
heads
TV.
in toilets.
Yes, and they sing the song that is a mix of two other songs that blew up. But when I saw it, I thought it was an expression of like supremacy taking over, and then maybe the cameras and speakers were like people recording the corruption of supremacy and exposing it, which I was very wrong.
Hmm.
The toilets represent poop humor, and it's a battle between poop humor and traditional um, uh,
Like
film.
traditional entertainment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but then they had to show that the poop humor was taking over, which is why I saw all the supremacy percent blah, blah, blah. Why I saw what I thought I saw.
Gotcha.
Supremacy, yeah, they were showing supremacy because they were taking over. Like, eh.
Hmm.
It's your perspective. I didn't know what
It.
poop humor was. To associate the toilets with poop humor, I associate the toilets with corruption.
Wow. But I think that so wow. It made me think of something I wanted to because explaining memes over a podcast is definitely the peak way to experience these, right? So you know how people do that they do that meme of Drake like kind of brushing off an idea at the top and then he's happy with an idea at the bottom.
Hmm.
So the way it formed in my head is at the top enjoying media without any critical thought. Like we don't like that. But enjoying media and criticizing it and applying critical theory or at least a critical lens, even though you can like pick out the bits and pieces that are problematic but still enjoy it. Like that's fun. That's fun to do. And it
Hmm.
takes a degree of media literacy. And there are a lot of people who uncritically consume media. And once they start to realize like there is a meaning behind this, like Rage Against the Machine or like Star Trek, and they realize like, oh, this is left leaning. I don't like left leaning. How come I never knew this? You know, Part of it is lack of media literacy, and you literally were not paying attention to what was being shown to you, right? And then the other aspect is you don't critically evaluate what you are consuming. You don't buy that cheeseburger and look at what the ingredients are, or that candy bar, right? It's just like,
You'll look
oh,
at
this.
the ingredients of an all natural of something that says that it's all natural, and then you look at those ingredients, but you'll ignore the ingredients in the Pizza Hut pizza and the Coke that you just drank.
Right,
And be, oh, there are unknowns in this all natural thing. I'm not. It's like what? Cherry
right,
picking
yeah,
your interest in things. Yeah, people do that all the time.
yeah, yeah. I think we all do it because there's a point where there are things that like our broadband. Is that what I'm trying to say?
Are you talking about internet?
Our bandwidth, our ability to pay attention to so
Robin,
many
where
things.
is your mind, sir?
I do not know. I'm look. It's a different day,
He doesn't have the
Yeah,
bandwidth for
yeah.
but like your bandwidth to pay attention to so many different things at once, it gets strained, and so sometimes people just shut things off. And in our age of everything being hyper politicized, there are a lot of people who look at their media and they're like, I don't want to think about politics in my Star Wars, right?
to be about race.
Right. And it's like when you do give yourself the opportunity to look with a critical lens, you don't have to dig very deep. Star Wars was basically an allegory for the Vietnam War, and the Empire is the United States government, right? The rebels are the Viet Cong. Star Trek is a post-scarcity, post-capitalist. They call it a socialist utopia, but it's like a post-scarcity society to where people are not buying and selling and have careers about buying and selling. They're trying to improve themselves, and the reward is, reputation. People are rewarded with, especially the scientists. That's the other thing. I'm sorry, I'm gonna go on a little bit of a tangent here, if y'all don't mind. In Star Trek, they do talk about how everyone is into science and mathematics, but you have to realize, like in Starfleet, you're genius level. It doesn't matter where you are. You're genius level math and science, and it's just amazing. So those people that pick that career. They are like some really like some smart folks. That's why they can like plot courses and all that stuff with just a few you know touches of buttons on the computer rather than sitting there trying to do a lot of math written out. They know they got it in their heads, right? And I think that's really cool. They do talk about it with certain characters. Like with Janeway, they really do emphasize her interest in math.
They
But
did it with who is the first black female officer on Star Trek? Her character's name was what?
Uhura. Uhura.
Yes. In the newer Star Trek,
oh yeah.
they
Hmm.
outline like how very skilled she was, and was she like multilingual in the hundreds of languages or something
Hmm.
Yeah.
crazy like that? Mm-hmm.
They did
Yeah.
that in Enterprise too with their communications officer too.
What's her name? Hoshi?
Hoshi, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really cool to see that, we don't know that many people in one room that are genius level at mathematics and stuff like that. But like that has to be so cool. Just imagining that environment. Anyway, but media literacy is really important. And I think you have writers and directors like J. Michael Straczynski that they're speaking to people who do have a certain degree of media literacy, and they will understand the messages. You know, if you decide to consume this media with a critical lens. And the cool thing is, he can get things wrong, and that's okay because it made you consider what he got wrong, you know? And there's a lot that he gets wrong in this series, but that's cool because we start to think about those things critically and like, how should we have approached this? That doesn't ruin the series for me. That just tells me that people have a certain bandwidth. We have certain perspectives and opinions. And as long as we are discussing these things and we understand, hey, these are issues in life that really do need to be addressed, and we can think creatively about it, we're moving in the right direction because that's what sci-fi is supposed to do anyway.
Yeah, when you guys put it like that, it really does help pull it together for me, and I appreciate y'all. I was thinking about the content of music that I enjoy. Yeah, I can kind of like catch the vibe from you, babe, when you come in the room and I'm listening to my trap music or my twerk music, my WAP music, or whatever it is. And it's just like the most horrendous, ridiculous content that I don't actually participate in real life at all. Like it's no reflection of who or what I am, but I really do enjoy the music. And I know that it's, awful and degrading and all kinds of other bad things. And I just ignore all of that and enjoy it anyway. So that makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah. When I was a music major in college, I had a professor who said that mindless music is great. And he was kind of referring to like mall punk, where they're not really talking about anything, not like the original punk where it had like depth and meaning and political and stuff. Just like I went on a date with a girl and it went like this. Okay, at the end of something.
Right.
There's no meaning, no depth. Like everyday life. I went to the mall today.
It's like what they call bubblegum pop. You know, is really catchy and sweet, but at the end of it, there's no substance, right?
Right.
I criticize a lot of music for being that, and that's, I always, people criticize me and they're like, people like what they like. I'm like, yeah, people like what they like, but if you only give them garbage, they're gonna like the garbage. You know, the throw a lettuce leaf in there.
Wow. Not you been eating your salads and want to shove lettuce on people.
Mm.
I
Well,
don't want to shove it on people.
I think like K-pop is like that for me because even if it is deep, I don't know. I'm just enjoying it.
Oh, yes. I used to know this Korean prayer in Korean, and I would sing it in like it sounded like a jingle that you'd hear on a ice cream truck, the way I sung it. And it
Hmm.
was so fun. And it made me smile to say it like that. I got in trouble for not praying in the proper Korean way, but
Oh.
it's just like got to that
Oh no.
there's that mindless, I know what I knew what I was saying, but it's like I'm not saying it because of the words. I'm saying it because I like the way the words sound, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And we get that. So like with sci-fi, trying to reel this back in. With sci-fi, what people like are laser swords and ray battles and starship battles and stuff like that. Or, what I've been posting on the TikTok, like faster than light travel and which ship is faster and which captain is better. The whole, like, the surface level engagement. Like,
Hmm.
you try to figure out who the heroes are, and then you try to pick of the heroes who's the best. You know, we don't get too deep into the backgrounds of the characters or what role that they serve or the politics of the characters, because that takes a little bit more engagement with the media. And even more now than almost any other time, people just don't have the same engagement with media.
I was thinking of how, or is it the Minbari that
Yeah.
had the poet, and how when she had been scarred, and the doctor had asked, like, I can, remove that for you. And she was like, no, that she wanted to keep it because I think she was engaged with her content, and the the peoples of her world, I believe, were very engaged as well when she was. It wasn't clear if she was going to make it. Uh, is it Malin was very upset and like expressing how serious an offense this would be if this particular woman were to pass away because of how important she was to their culture.
Yeah. She described it as it would hurt the soul of the Minbari.
Yeah.
And I was doing some recap with Nita yesterday. She was talking about how it is very important for us to protect the creators of our cultures.
I
Yeah.
agree, Nita. We need to protect you at all costs. You know how important it is for you to keep on creating so that, that I stay out of jail. The end.
That you stay out of jail?
Yes.
I think we all should, aspire to stay out of jail
Nita, are
for the
you
time
there,
being.
love?
Yeah, I was
Okay.
sneezing.
Oh, okay. So, yeah,
Yes,
go ahead.
all of your energy into my well-being. Uh, but that's kind of what I was figuring is the relationship between um the Minbari poet and Delenn is just like this connection to the culture because Delenn is very cultured in her culture. I don't know how else to express the thought that I have. And this poet is, quote, like the soul of their culture. So there is this deep admiration there. And then I think the poet also is connected to the culture very, very deeply and understands her role and is committed to that. So so I think that is like I don't even think friendship is the right word to describe their relationship.
It's like it's definitely a reverence, but she's almost like devoted in a religious and worshiping way
Yeah.
to her.
That's what I think. Because what in the gathering when she had that discussion with the leader at the time. I don't know why I can't remember anybody's names right now. But he stated something and she said that they had thousands of books written on that one subject. So people who can come up with ways of expressing ideas are enormously important in their culture. And those ideas, according to what we learned from the soul taker person, um, it's very precious to hold on to the people who are responsible for those. And she is one of those people. So maybe it is like not just a cultural but a professional thing that connects poets with the governing parties, because the government is ran by the many books and poems and stories and ideas, philosophies that was written within their history.
And it makes you think about how we view our culture. Growing up, going to school, and if you study the liberal arts, there's always this emphasis put on the poets, the historians, and all of that. But we lose that because our culture, at the moment, we're more about who is the most popular, and then we look at who's the most popular, not really influential in a cultural way, but influential in a marketing way.
Mhm.
We care about who sells the most books, who sells the most albums,
Got the most
who sells the
clicks.
most, yeah, the most tickets, the most likes or clicks or re-shares and all of that. And when you look at the people at the top of those lists, especially in the age of social media, there are not many people who are creating culturally impactful content.
Right.
One of the wildest trends on TikTok right now is the NCP live
Mhm.
TikToks. It's annoying. It's
What?
ridiculous, and a
They're
couple of
so
those creators are making like a ridiculous amount of money doing
Yeah.
it's I'm giving them the views.
it.
um, it was quite a few years ago. I think before engineering was born. No, I was pregnant then. Um, we did Black History Month, and for we had like a spirit week for Black History Month. So like one day they wore like black and green and red and stuff. The last day, Friday, um, they had the kids dress up like famous people in Black history,
Hmm.
and this is preschool, mind you. So the parents are dressing them up. So some of the kids dressed up in different careers that they thought would be cool, that was influential to Black history. And there were quite a few Nicki Minaj's.
My God.
Um,
Like, okay, and like when they asked the parents why they dressed their kid up like Nicki Minaj, it was like because she sold so many records, blah blah blah. Like, why did that
yeah,
make history? Like, I can understand, like, for some reason I understand like Oprah Winfrey making as much money as she does being influential, but I don't think it's the money that makes her important. It's what she did to get there that's important. But
right,
for someone like Nicki, not that she's not a talented rapper, why'd you dress up your preschooler like that for Black history? Like, you felt that that was the most important thing you could dress up your kid like?
right, and it's the thing. And here we go on another rabbit trail. It's the thing that disappoints me the most about hip hop culture. Hip hop sold out a long time ago to the marketing. It's
Mm-hmm.
all about it's all about clout, sales, showing off your wealth. There was a point in time where hip hop was a counterculture, and it was about exposing like day to day life and like hypocrisy in the mainstream, wealth disparity, all of that, history lessons. And there is still an underground movement that is still doing that stuff. They're doing it better now than it's ever been done, but you don't hear about them because they're not making the sales. And you hear rappers talk about how, oh, I could make songs about marching and stuff, but while y'all are marching, I'm gonna go ahead and get this money, you know. And it's frustrating because it's like, not to get too much deeper into that because we got to get back to this episode, but it's like you have, oh God, okay, I got to say this on this episode. It's okay. You have white supremacy wearing black faces in high places. And the only thing that people will see is the money, and they'll say, "Oh, we made it." And it's like, well, that person made it, but look at what they're doing to everyone else. Like the money changed them. They become part of the system. And the system waters everything with substance down. And and that's where we get where people are like surface level engaging with this media, with this content, because it's like if you learn that it's political, at least they got money though.
That
At least he
actually
rich.
ties us back into the episode because there, even though this show does not give the time to have teased that out, but when the captain was going undercover and pretending to like hate the aliens, but I just this job forces me, to behave this way, but I really wouldn't care if they died. And then when the organization was about to accept him in, They were like, well, we gotta test you and make sure you down for the call, so kill this alien. Like that work from within, never is, the best idea because you get put into situations like that where you have to, become the enemy that you're trying to fight. It doesn't always turn out that great.
Also, there, what lines up with this is the young lovers storyline, because Londo, he preaches hard about how the tradition is you marry for wealth. It was crazy because they were like the guy was like, well, I'm arranged to be married to the ugliest woman in Centauri. In the Centauri Empire, he goes, "Great, that means she's rich," and and the way that Londo displayed his wives, he didn't love or care for them, but they represented like his collection, right?
Mhm.
Him being married into their families represented his access to wealth.
Yeah, those pictures were crazy looking too, the expressions on their faces. And
Yeah.
he said, knowing that they're waiting at home for me is why I'm happy to be here on Babylon 5. I'm like, yeah, that's cold.
Really
Mm.
confused by his opposition to love when he was in love with that other woman so hard.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Like
Yep.
you know what it feels like, and you know what it feels like to not have that. So why are you not allowing, or why, yeah, why are you not just letting these people be in love?
I
Yeah.
think maybe why was because he has his three wives, so why not have his fun on the side while he's 60 some light years away? He has his connections because he was married. These kids haven't got married yet. They haven't made their connections yet. They married a couple of old ugly people, then they can go play later. Like maybe the tradition should have been like um they did the medieval times on Earth where they did get married and have their mistresses on the side. Like it was common. So and that would have made her his mistress, but they could have also still married each other and still, um, saw each other without actually having love as part of the marriage.
Definitely.
Which,
I
I
don't know.
oh, go ahead.
I'm trying to remember. Oh, sorry, you guys. When Londo was objecting to their love, I think he was mentioning something to the effect that he's being affected. Like he can't just let this go because of whatever position it put him in, where he was gonna get in some kind of trouble. But when he found the loophole that like you could be adopted by my rich uncle, then that gave him the freedom to go ahead and like let them do their thing without him also getting in trouble. So he was covering his own ass.
I mean, yeah, but it was because he decided like, okay, we have this tradition. These kids, they kind of moved me. So how can I help them and help myself? And yeah, he found the loophole that allowed him to do that and allowed them to, choose and get married. But what it did not do was change the culture. It just changed that circumstance. And I think that's really important to pay attention to because Centauri culture does become a major topic later on in the series. But the way Londo navigates that in so many different ways, it just points out the fragility of these type of societies. You know, the the arranged marriage, they're like an aristocratic type of society. They're definitely imperialistic. They still have an emperor, but yeah, the fragility of those societies is in the intricacies of the many laws that they have, and once one aspect of that is exposed, the whole thing unravels, which I think is another thing that J. Michael Straczynski is trying to point out. Like we have these very strict rules and laws, but they do nobody any good other than the wealthy. And once they start to unravel, you see the wealthy panic, which is what Londo did. He was like, "What love? What does love have to do with marriage?" So I wanted to ask you all about Ivanova's relationship with Malcolm. So Malcolm pops up, and apparently they were an old flame in the past, and he's trying to reignite that flame. First of all, what are your thoughts on Ivanova having like an on-screen relationship like that?
I thought she was going to turn him down at every pass. I was quite shocked that she was reeled in by a rose.
What was that, Mel? I think
Oh,
you're
no, Mike is picking me up. I don't know.
yeah.
I was feeling like I should say what I said yesterday.
Yeah.
Uh,
Go ahead.
yeah. So it remind him being the way that he was made me think of her relationship with her father and how she didn't entirely have a great relationship with him until he was on his deathbed, pretty much. So maybe she, as strong as she is and as confident as she is, did end up in some relationships where she was um not as she didn't show her confidence because she needed to bring herself down in order to get approval of a man, because that's what she felt like she should have had to do with her dad, even though she didn't. So um when he comes back, it, even though she's a strong character, a strong woman as she is, um him showing any little bit of, I'm going to show interest in you, or I may change and see you as you think I should see you, she would buckle. I think I think that's a good example of someone buckling under those circumstances. And it's really hard to see that because you're used to seeing them being strong. And those are the type of women who are looking for someone, sometimes, not always, to treat you like a princess at some point. And once you get that tiny bit of princess treatment, it's like, is it coming now?
Hmm.
And of course, he's the one who will see that in her, that she's looking for that tiny bit. So he gives her that tiny bit so that he can get what he wants. And that's why she was very standoffish about him when he first got on. Like, okay, you here, I'm working. Like, and then when she finds out that he's a part of that group, she's like, yeah, only if I can see you take him down. Like, because he hurt her. Like, he hurt her. She really wanted him to come in and be her prince, and then he turned out to be a jerk as usual. So yeah, now I'm getting my revenge, rightfully so.
So, um, the next question I wanted to ask is, what did you think when they revealed that basically Ivanova chose her career over their relationship and serving in the military? Like, did that make you feel like the relationship was damaged and doomed from the get go, or was their reconnection like legit an opportunity to try, you know, to give it the real try?
I mean, if he wasn't a terrorist, I think that would have been great. Um, I think it's happened several times in the show where people's careers have interfered with their love lives. Um, but with some, I don't know, creative thinking or compromise, I think these relationships could work out until you find out that your lover is a murderer. I mean, that's never really good.
Yeah. So with that with that relationship, we see that Malcolm is basically, I don't know if he's the leader, but he is definitely high up as far as moving around and doing things for Home Guard. They are identified as a pro Earth terrorist group carrying out attacks on non human aliens. on Babylon 5 and on Earth. And it's very interesting that okay, so this episode aired in the 90s, and they were considered fringe right wing groups, but now we have some right wing groups that are very much in the media. They are producing content this to this day that really fit this description. Sinclair calls them hate peddlers playing off fear and ignorance to turn human against alien. And if you just change those last three words, they're gonna turn, American citizens against immigrants or against a marginalized ethnic group. You know what I'm saying? And they may not always enact violence, but a lot of times we see them do that. But they are inciting violence against these groups. And I wanted to know, what do you think about those parallels? Because like back in the 90s, these were like militia groups that hung out in the woods, a lot. They weren't doing the rallies the way we see in them today.
I did watch a part of a documentary on Babylon 5 where they talked a lot more about the creator, Sir, I don't want to say his name wrong.
Straczynski. Yeah.
Yeah. Part of his family was from Europe during World War II. So even though it models what's happening now, it models the history that his parents saw. It's just repeating. Like either it's that religion or this race or this marginalized group. It kind of just keeps repeating itself so much that it could have been in the 20s or the 40s or now or 200 years from now. It's still the same somehow.
Yeah. And maybe that's what this whole series is about, because I mean, you see that Babylon 5 is this grand diplomatic project that seems to be doomed to fail, right? And you see, like I said, the creeping specter of fascism with the Psi Corps, and you see the xenophobia and ethno chauvinism with the home front. I keep forgetting the name of it. I'll in my mind, Home Guard, because I always get them mixed up with this Mass Effect group. So in the game Mass Effect, there is a group called Terra Nova. They're basically the same thing. They're pretty hilarious, but they do have like a pro-human rally in the Citadel. And if you get a chance to play Mass Effect, get deep into the lore, learn about terra firma and their views. It's pretty funny, but they do a good job, just like in this show, about depicting what xenophobia and like those type of views can do.
I haven't played. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead. You were gonna say something.
I haven't played Mass Effect, but one of my favorite authors, N.K. Jemisin, she co-wrote one of the books based on Mass Effect. And there's apparently a lot of those books, but that's the one that I wanted to read because it had her on it. But yeah, you could also check out the books too.
If you get a chance, so a couple of years ago, BioWare released the entire Mass Effect trilogy as one game, and it is called the Legendary Edition. So it's Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3. All in one launcher. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, get into it. Your Shepard, so Commander Shepard, you can make Shepard male or female, all kinds of cool stuff. Yeah, definitely get into it. What I wanted to get into before we have to get out of here is there is a point where Commander Sinclair ties off some plot hole points from the series, and I wanted to know if y'all noticed this. Mm-hmm. So he was talking to Ivanova about when Ambassador Kosh got poisoned. Did y'all catch that?
No.
Yeah.
Yes.
the very where there was like, how did you get to his hand when his whole body is supposed to be shut up?
Right. Yeah, it's covered in an encounter suit, right? Um, and Ivanova's like, well, maybe the encounter suit really is more camouflage than actually anything else, right? Which is kind of cool because it's like they're thinking beyond. They're Straczynski is allowing the characters to think critically about what has already happened on the show. You can't just let stuff happen and let it go. Let's address it. And he mentions how Benjamin Kyle, the first Doctor, was transferred as soon as the incident was over. And I'm like, that's kind of cool that they mentioned that because they got rid of that actor. They also mentioned Lita Alexander being transferred. She was the one that came in contact with Kosh and she read his mind to find the killer. So the two people who came closest in contact to Kosh got transferred elsewhere to Earth, and Earth wants to basically find out as much information as they can about this mysterious alien. And they are speculating, like, is there a connection? Like, why does Earth need to have these two people back? And I just thought that was cool because that all happened in the pilot, but people saw the pilot, and if you saw the pilot and you got to the first 5 or 6 episodes, you're like, hey, what happened to those people? How come nobody's talking about them? They were able to at least weave it into this story and keep us thinking, like, wait a minute, that did happen. Or if you didn't get to see the pilot, now you got to go back and watch and figure out, like, what happened. Which, again, I think that's some clever writing. All right, so all of the kind of the things that wrap up, we find, the kids, they get their happy ending. There's a point where, Jakar was inciting a riot. They got calmed down. There was an Asian guy.
He's scared to be arrested. He ain't down for the cause for real.
I'm gonna say this: don't be downplaying Jakar. You'll find out why.
I'll believe it when I see it. He folded like a deck of cards. No, was it like a picnic table?
Oh man, he folded like that chair.
Yes.
But the way I described it, but he was inciting this riot, this uprising. I said basically Jakar is the Malcolm X by now in the series. People really do listen to him. He's an influential voice, but I don't think he's that powerful, at least not right now. Wow, my Google Home decided to talk to us. That's pretty funny. But yeah, there was this Asian guy. One moment. Hold on. Hey, Google. Stop music. Jeez. Hold on, y'all. Okay, Google. Stop music. I'll just cut all of that out. So there's this Asian guy. I can't remember what his job is, but I think his name is Roberts. And I was distracted because I was like, there's like a trope here. I don't know what it is. And I think it's called the misplaced accent trope. So they showed us an Asian guy, but they gave him kind of like a country twang, a country draw. He's supposed to represent kind of like the everyman, like the blue collar guy. And I was like, something feels weird about this, but I think it was just the casting choice. I don't think it meant anything. And that actor was terrible, by the way, but he gets beat within an inch of his life. Malcolm visits him and they're talking home guard stuff. And, this all wraps up with Sinclair pretending to be with the home guard. They eventually arrest Malcolm and they send him off. But you basically get one happy ending with the Centauri children, the Centauri teenagers. A sad ending with Ivanova, the person that she was thinking about rekindling her love with is a space racist. Um, and I'm sorry.
No, I was just laughing. That was funny. Space
Oh yeah.
races.
And then I guess Delenn and the alien ambassadors, they get their happy ending in that they were being protected. And it's very interesting because the humans, if we want to look at it this way, the humans kind of took an L on this episode. And we have to make a counter now. But once again, Commander Sinclair puts himself in danger by walking into a clear ambush with no weapons and no backup. He was ready to take one.
Yeah, he needs to be on somebody's couch.
As soon as he decided he was going, he's like, "Oh well, they like people in power like me. Like, you gonna do it again, aren't you?" That was the moment he ran into battle.
Mm-hmm. He was like, "I gotta do it. I just gotta do it." But that's his excuse. I mean, that's his reasoning every single time. Like, it's gotta be me. All right. Any final thoughts on this episode? We went all around the world on this one.
I think it was relevant though. Like, it's such a broad subject. The effects that expression has on how we see things and how we don't see things. It will easily go everywhere.
Yeah, and I think it had 3 very deep concepts that were, all tied together in one episode. It could have easily been like its own episode with the teenagers and then Ivanova's relationship and then the whole separate situation with the space races. It was a lot folded into one. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. What about you, Nita? Any last thoughts on this episode?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, as we get ready to get out of here, I wanted to share. So I'm gonna push more Mass Effect because the more Mass Effect you have in your life, the better. The term space racist was coined among Mass Effect fans because there is a character that you meet in the very first game named Ashley Williams. You recruit her, but later on, when she's on your ship, you get to go talk to your crew and learn more about them. And you learn that Ashley is a straight up space racist. Like, not the only one on the ship either, because she claims to have reasons. Depending on what you like, which missions you take her on, and how you do, she begins to slowly change her views. But the humans in that game are pretty much trash. The alien characters are awesome. And the MVPs are Garrus Precarian and Tali Zora. Oh, what's her full name? Tali Zora. Oh crap, I can't remember. She changes her name later in the game. Anyway, play some Mass Effect. You'll have fun. All right, so let's get out of here. Is there anything cool that you guys are doing?
No.
Nope, just living the best life.
Well,
Okay.
there's a Facebook group for Voices of Hyperspace.
Sweet.
So you can join in the conversation on Facebook and post things. And I'll be asking questions about the same thing that we're discussing here. So you don't have to just listen to us. You can comment too.
Awesome.
Oh, she's gonna quiz us.
Oh no.
No,
We
just
look.
they're just Facebook posts. So you can say it if you want to. You don't have to.
And of course, our TikTok is up. We're gonna have some fun creating content with that, and pretty soon our YouTube will be up and rolling. This is Voices of Hyperspace. We're gonna have us some fun. This is Damian Smith, aka Legendary Black Lion.
I am Mel Asylum. You can find me at Mel's Rebellion.
Nita, and I just joined the Facebook group.
Sweet.
This is Sunday. Bye, y'all.